Welcome to The Age Hack, a longevity lifestyle podcast. As always, I'm here with the wonderful Fiona.
A pleasure.
Today, we're going to talk about the pace inside a blue zone. Dr. David Sinclair today, and then I'm going to surprise you today with some discussion around certain supplements that I'm coming up with, as well as other, well, let's say an in vogue drug.
Ooh, I'm intrigued.
If you want to check out The Age Hack, make sure you check us out online, and you can follow us on Instagram at @theagehack_pod.
Awesome.
Let's take it away.
Get stuck in. So, Paul, our penultimate episode for the season.
That's right.
A bit of a bittersweet moment.
Yeah, we got this far, but it's too good. We just don't want it to end.
And I thought we could start the podcast this week talking about your bro. He's just invested in an infrared sauna and a cold plunge.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
When we have talked about these a little bit on previous podcasts, but I'm always happy to talk about my twin brother.
What, we've spoken about your brother having the setup?
No, we haven't spoken about him.
I was like, no, I've doubled up somewhere. No. Okay. Yeah, right.
So we just went to his house because he was away on holidays for 4.5 months in Europe. Lucky guy.
Living the dream.
Living the dream. And he's come back to a basement room that he had redone while he was away.
Brother-in-law or, yes.
Fixed up. Anyways, it's got a brand new clear light sauna, which I thought was amazing, an amazing infrared sauna, but turns out it's both.
Yeah.
So
what's the top temp, did he say?
It gets to 80 degrees naturally.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a normal sauna and it's an infrared sauna. So this isn't an ad for Clearlight, obviously, but they sound so good, right? And they've also got light therapy. He was showing me all the features of this sauna. It is incredible.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to getting our own one day.
Yeah, that's right. That's on the list.
But you might just have to schedule in an appointment at the Nick's Spa.
I think we'll have to go to my brother's house a few times first, yeah. But then he hasn't set it up yet, but he also bought an ice bath at the same time. So, he's looking forward to using them and then combining them and going from one to the other, etc., which is really, really good. And do you know what they do?
Do I know what they do? Well, I know that they're hormetic stressors.
That's right.
I love that word. Hormetic stressors. So they get the body to go into autophagy, sort of?
In a way, yes. So they stress the body, but in a good way.
Yeah.
So, if you stayed at 80 degrees for too long, you'd die.
Yeah.
And so the body says, wow, this isn't a great environment. We need to
clear out the senescent cells.
The defective cells will go through senescence and autophagy. We'll get rid of the bad stuff. We'll promote the good stuff. We'll reduce inflammation because we don't need it, because we need to deal with this heat, etc. And the same thing with cold. If you stayed at 0 degrees for an extended period of time, you would die. So the body says the same thing. This isn't good. Let's optimize the body. We'll only use the functions that we need to. We'll get rid of bad cells because we don't need them anymore. And it helps clear out dead cells and promote new healthy cells. So by doing both, you can contrast the body and get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I was thinking just then about what I would do if I had that set up, like what my routine would be. Obviously, you've got the king of cold therapy in Wim Hof. So I was thinking maybe I would do some Wim Hof breathing and then go into the cold plunge.
Right.
And then finish off in the sauna. What would you do?
Ideally, and I've seen it when we go into these places in the city that have sort of saunas, pools and cold plunges, most people will actually start in the sauna.
Really?
So they'll increase their core body temperature. When you finish work or it's quite aggressive to just jump straight into freezing water. If you can heat the body up, that's a lot more tenable. And then you get too hot, then you want to cool down. So it's sort of a good contrast.
Yeah, right.
And so most people will heat first, then they'll go into cold, and then they'll end again in heat.
Yeah.
If you've ever done a very cold bath for an extended period of time and then not reheated afterwards, it can be pretty uncomfortable for the rest of the day, which I did do about 3.5 years ago. So we managed to find a guy who had a freezer that he tipped upside down, filled it full of salt to bring down the freezing point of water, and then loaded it with ice blocks. So we managed to get it at under 0 degrees. I think it was -1 or 2 degrees, which is quite unusual. That's more of a
Well, that's like doing the polar plunge when we did that.
In Antarctica, we did do that. And because of the high salt water down there, it's negative, less than negative as well. So we did that. And because my twin brother is also maximum effort, he went first. And the guy said, look, you don't want to put your hands in. Don't go too low. It's your first time. And maybe stay in for about 30 seconds to a minute. And Nick stayed in for 5 minutes, all the way down to his chin with his hands in the whole time.
Oh, my God.
And being, you know, a professional twin brother competition, I couldn't have him beat that. Well, I couldn't have him beat me. So I copied him. So I didn't go any further, but 5 minutes up to the chin with the hands in the whole time. And
the back of the neck is just...
it was actually quite painful. You know, the hands and the feet get really, really sore, pins and needles, stabbing pains.
I've had that before where I felt like my ankles were going to break when we did the cold plunge in Bali. I couldn't handle it.
Yeah, and it's all comparison, right? For me, it was easy because, you know, we weren't negative.
Maybe been a bit used to it.
And so after that, it took me a good 3 hours to stop shivering.
Do you think you had mild hypothermia?
Yeah.
Seriously?
I think I did, because I just couldn't get warm. But I felt sort of good energy and then maybe a little bit of a headache later. But I think I went a bit too hard too soon, but that's just maximum effort. And, you know, it can be a little bit diminishing returns, you know.
How so?
Well, what they say is if you're in a cold plunge of 15 degrees, it's 15 minutes, 14 degrees, it's 14 minutes, etc. So, you know, at 5 degrees, that's at 5 minutes. -1, -2 at 5 minutes all the way in with your hands in is probably a bit excessive, especially on your first time. So, but yeah, just that was my anecdotal experience. But yeah, how I would roll it would be heat, cold, finish with heat. You'd be more comfortable. You'll still get a lot of the benefits.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that we speak obviously to the longevity side of it, but as well, the cold plunge is really, really good for mental health. And then the infrared sauna, amazing for your skin.
That's true.
Yeah, I always notice when I do the traditional sauna that like following my skin just feels so soft and moisturized and beautiful. But yeah, there's kind of goes beyond just the cellular level.
In an infrared, and that's why I think clear light is so cool, because you can combine the two. You can get the heat and the infrared at the same time, because people don't realize you get warm in an infrared sauna, but the external temperature isn't that warm.
The other thing that I really liked is that it had those lights, coloured lights, so you could do the red light therapy at the same time, which is also amazing for you.
And then he had a box in there that you can open and close with a cable to plug your phone in, so you can play music or meditation. It's a really cool setup.
Really cool. I love it. Yeah. I reckon... I don't know. I still like my way. I like do the Wim Hof breathing, do the cold plunge, do the sauna with the meditation. And I would be doing that 4 times a week. Yeah,
I mean, that would be perfect. You don't have to do it every day, but they see the biggest results, especially in finished saunas, 4 times a week. Massive reduction in
only at
mortality.
Like 70 degrees, which is actually some of the saunas we've been in. That's actually not too bad.
70 is a walk in the park. Yeah, especially that one in Budapest, I'm pretty sure was mid-90s.
I don't think I went in that one. We'd been saunaing and plunging for about 2.5 hours, and so I was like passed out on one of the sunbeds, and you
outside,
were
trying every single sauna and pool in the entire place, and it was huge.
Oh, you poor thing.
No, I loved it. That's what I wanted to do. But I did go into this hot sauna, which...
Was this one you had to go in naked?
You had to go in naked. So it was around the corner. However, I didn't, because no one else was in there.
Oh, okay.
So as I went in there, another guy went in there, but I think he was a veteran. I stayed in there too long. I had people, while I was in there, coming in, staying for only a couple of minutes and then leaving that quick. But because I came in with another guy, I said, well, you know, I can't let this guy...
It's like running on the treadmill.
Yeah.
It's like, well, they're still running.
Here, so I need to keep going.
Hell yeah.
Anyways, I went outside, and I know you remember, I had thousands of spider veins just burning all over me like a web that didn't go away for more than 24 hours. I thought I'd burnt my blood vessels
or something.
I was like really worried there for a while.
I mean, we were there for like 3-4 hours. It was probably a bit too much.
Well, that hot sauna, like I said, we were in together 85 and 90 degrees saunas, me and you. This one was a lot hotter than that.
Crazy.
And people couldn't last for longer than a minute or two.
That I would say would have to be one of the hottest things that you've done. But I think still hotter than that was the baths, the thermal baths in Turkey.
Well, that's right.
And that guy got into one and it was just like, it was like he was climbing into a pot of boiling water. It was crazy.
I couldn't get my hand in for longer than 2 seconds.
How hot
and
was
I
that?
had to pull it out.
How hot was that one? Was that like 60, 70?
It's hard to know without a thermometer. When we have a hot shower, we might think it's like 50 or 60 degrees. No, it's only probably low 40s, but the differential because of the latent heat. So water takes a lot of heat out very quickly, whereas air doesn't. That's why, you can go into a 95 degree sauna and it's not rushing that heat out of your body, which is why we burn. We burn not because of the heat, but because of the heat transfer.
Yeah.
And so water can take heat out a lot faster, which means that there's a lot more transfer, which means it seems hotter because it's going to cause more damage and the brain signals, all right, hot.
But it's the same with the cold, right? It's like you can be in a one of those cryo things with the cold air.
Yeah, at negative 90, sometimes negative 200 degrees.
Yeah, but then you go in a bath which is like 10 degrees and that feels almost colder.
Again, it's because of the energy transfer and it's the speed which gives us the sensation of cold or hot of transfer. So that's right. So you got to be careful around water. So the water is not boiling or anywhere close to that. However, it felt, I couldn't even put my hand in that Turkish one. I'm trying to get in there. I spent half an hour putting my feet in, trying to get it accustomed, couldn't do it. This guy just rocks up, jumps in all the way and just stays there. I couldn't believe it. This guy was superhuman.
There was a little crowd of us watching as well because we'd all been going, oh, look how hot this one is.
And we can't get in, and he did it. I wonder if he damaged himself in that. It seemed a bit too hot.
Yeah. I don't think that sort of temperature is where it's like not very good for your skin.
Well, who knows? Well, he didn't die in front of us, so maybe he knows what he's doing.
Hot things and cold things.
That's right. But yes, my twin brother's now got a sauna and an ice bath, and I'm super looking forward to using them in tandem.
So, Paul, I thought for this week's Blue Zone Wisdom of the Week, we could go back to Ikaria.
Okay.
Greece,
yep.
Just off the coast of Turkey. And we could chat about the tempo of life in Ikaria, and it's actually reflected across some of the other blue zones as well. Okinawa, Sardinia.
Loma Linda, or you don't know so much?
I'm not too sure about Loma Linda.
I would assume...
I know they do a lot of nature walks and stuff, so I think it'd still be, but more or less just the vibe.
And the pace of the place.
Yeah.
And look, I'm assuming you're going to say they take life a bit slower.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the thing that I was looking at is like, most Ikarians take like an afternoon nap.
It's the dream, isn't it?
Yeah. And so I thought we could just talk about the concept of, because we have a very busy life. We're anything but slow.
That's true.
In our life.
And we're talking about the blue zones.
Yeah.
We're not necessarily practicing all their practices.
Not all of them, that's for sure. And I think that having a busy life and a full life is amazing and wonderful. But, just taking some learnings from like, okay, well, if you were to try and live the blue zone way, how do you go about slowing down? How do you live like the Ikarians, taking a mid-afternoon nap?
So I don't know if you're asking me this, but I'm probably not the right person to ask because I'm always busy. But I think, it's just their culture though, right? That's what their parents did and their parents' parents, etc. And it sort of passed through the generations. And that's also sort of looking after their diet, their family and community. They just seem to have, probably without all much planning, just maybe it's the weather, it's the location, it's the viability of their food or their crops or something, but it all has come together to give them that life. And I think that part of that would be slowing down and being very purposeful, maybe working on the land for their food. So they're getting organic food, but doing that, they can do it slowly and purposefully. Yeah,
that's it. I think like if we look at ways of like, okay, well, how can we slow down? I think having a garden is a really great way to slow down because impossible to garden quickly. Like, could you imagine trying to do the weeding and be like, no, you have to be careful. And when you pull the weed out, like, you've got to kind of like wriggle it and then pull it. And it's, you know, it's a slow process.
Yeah, good point.
You know, even if you're watering plants, like, you can't just be like, you know, you got to slowly water the plants and put a lot of intention and thought into what you're doing.
Gardening's probably, a really good way to go. Obviously, meditation.
Yeah.
You know, that's really grounding and getting you to slow down and be present.
Yeah, I think that that's reflected in the blue zone, maybe slightly differently in prayer and religious practice as well, because, you know, I suppose that's a form of meditation. And, you know, they're taking time out of each week or each day to meditate and reflect inwards. And, yeah, that's definitely one way to slow down.
Community as well. You know, to get around your friends and family, and then you're not dependent on what you're doing. You're dependent in a way on others and their pace. And it can't be all about you and your progression and what you're doing, because you're around friends. It's a group effort, which can slow things down. Yeah,
it kind of takes you out of that state of selfishness and like puts you outwards and caring for other people and connecting and just being a bit more in the moment. Yeah.
Farming practices, I guess. Well, I guess that's gardening.
Yeah, it's kind of like to a degree. Gardening at a larger scale. I think one of the other things that I had written down here was, you know, the way that we eat our food. You know, I think that modern society isn't really well set up for slowing down. You know, we eat our food in front of the TV or in front of a small screen. You know, I think eating your food and, you know, talking to your partner or connecting with your friends is a really good way to slow down.
And we've talked about this on a previous episode.
Yeah.
The importance of that. So just, if you haven't heard that episode, just really quickly, we won't delve into it too much. But there was a study done on the most important things for health. And so the options would be, you know, obviously drink water, your diet, how much exercise you do, how much sleep you get. The most important was water intake. The second most wasn't sleeping or even community or eating a healthy diet or exercising. It was mastication. It was chewing your food was found to be the second most important thing that you can do for your health. And on average, we only chew our food 9 to 12 times before we swallow it. The clinical data shows we must chew our food between 60 and 80 times before we swallow. So we're not even hitting 20% of what we should be doing there. And if we were to be intentional, slow down, which is what we're talking about now, and chew our food, it's the second most important thing we can do for our health. It's unbelievable. Yeah.
And I was thinking about this as well. It's like, you know, I think having a meal with friends is such a good way to do that. You know, because you're not just kind of like shoveling your food down in between appointments or commitments. And I was thinking, well, how could somebody that lives alone or is by themselves at that time, how could they get around it? And I think, you know, just call someone, or FaceTime. Like, I think there's ways to create that with modern technology. You know, you can set up a FaceTime and, you know, feel like you're enjoying a meal with a friend when you're just chatting and eating.
It's kind of a cool idea, isn't it? I wonder how many people actively think and do something like that.
Yeah, I thought, oh, maybe that's a good idea I could share.
Yeah.
And other ways.
Fiona's helpful tips.
Other ways to slow down, I think walking. You know, we see that reflected across so many of the blue zones. Nature walks in Loma Linda, Okinawa, Singapore, they walk a lot. So I think walking. Well, what a better way to slow down rather than jumping in the car or, you know, on your electric scooter.
Yeah. Get there on foot like we used to do.
Yeah. And I think as well, when you are walking, you know, we talk about slowing down, and if you are someone that's like rushing from this thing to that thing to da-da-da, you might find that you even walk fast. Like if you're walking through the supermarket, you're kind of on a mission and you're like powering along. You know, I think that even just being aware of that and intentionally slowing down how you're walking to be slower and more relaxed kind of helps to slow you down mentally as well.
Yeah. I suppose it's almost like burning the candle too fast at both ends. You know, if we can slow down, we can prolong it.
Yeah. Less stress on the body, less unnecessary stress.
Yeah.
And I think getting enough sleep as well. I mean, that's a good way to slow down, is making sure that you're prioritizing your sleep and getting your 8 to 10 hours. 8 to 10 hours is what they're doing in blue zones.
Amazing.
I thought that seemed longer than...
We seem to do sort of 6 to 8 or maybe 7 to 8, but 8 to 10.
Yeah.
Females in particular need more sleep as well than males.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Need that beauty sleep.
Males need 8, females 9 to 10. So
yeah.
Yeah. So to summarise, we can help slow ourselves down with more sleep.
Yep.
More community time.
Mm-hmm.
More walking.
Yeah. More gardening.
Meditation.
And I think just slowing down the essentials, like if you're walking somewhere, walk calmly. If you're eating, eat calmly, Yeah.
Good way to go. There you go, guys. Slow down, live longer.
Yep.
So, Fiona, what's our favourite longevity man, Dr. David Sinclair, up to at the moment? What's new?
Yeah, so he is preparing to present a keynote speech at Longevity Fest.
There's a longevity fest?
Yeah, there's a
Why aren't we
longevity
there?
fest in Las Vegas.
Amazing. Oh, we've just come from Las Vegas.
I know, we missed it by that much.
Oh, man.
So he is presenting a keynote speech I believe it's called Undoing Aging. And I'm really interested to hopefully get a recording of the speech once he's made it, because it's been a little while since I've seen
anything
him
new
speaking on anything new.
Please, if you do get it, send it to me. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. But I thought we could sort of reflect on his routine. But as I was doing the research for this, I came across something. Did you know that Dr. David Sinclair actually became a tenured professor at Harvard at the age of 39? That might not mean a lot to you, but that is incredibly young.
That is young, yeah, right.
Yeah, super young. Most of the tenured professors are waiting till late 40s to mid 50s to have the honour.
And I'm sure he probably looked 39 and now he looks 25.
I mean, he's successfully reversed his biological age by 10 years.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And
he looks incredible.
56 now or 57?
I think so.
Yeah, he might be pushing 60, I think. So technically his biological age is in the 40s, but he's approaching 60 if he's reversed it by 10 years.
I'm just going to check. He's 55.
55, okay. So he's about 45 as a biological age.
Yeah. I should find that side by side of him, like 40 versus 50 kind of thing. And yeah, I mean, he looks incredible. But I thought that we could go through sort of like a day in the life of Dr. David Sinclair.
Has he put something out, has he?
Yeah, I think this is from a little while ago, so I'm really interested to see how it's changed over the years. Now, hopefully he updates it when he does his keynote at Longevity Fest. But typically,
what is he doing?
Yeah, typically he wakes up between 6 and 6:30.
Okay.
He actually does his email and his daily planning from his bed. He intentionally promotes stillness to activate his mind more and just stay really calm in bed, going through his emails and planning his day out.
Interesting. Okay, I wouldn't have picked that.
I thought that was really interesting too. I was like, I'd love to know his thoughts behind the science of that, because it's like, don't look at your phone first thing in the morning. And he's on his laptop or on his phone, getting to work. Yeah. Okay,
interesting. What else is he doing? Because we're not very far into his day.
Yeah, we're not. 6:30 to 7 a.m. oral hygiene.
30 minutes of oral hygiene? Come on. Maybe that's just the window.
This is the window.
Okay.
He uses natural non-toxic toothpaste, which I thought, pretty cool.
Interesting. Yeah. We do that from time to time.
From time to time. We probably should do that more. What I thought was really cool is he does coconut oil pulling, which we've been doing a little bit of recently.
In the morning?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't, but I need to pick that up, I think, if Dr. David Sinclair's doing it. I
swear that when I was doing it consistently, this is going back probably 8 years or so, I healed a
cavity.
That's what it's called. Yeah, cavity.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm sure that I did. I went to the dentist and they said, that looks like it's becoming a cavity. You need to get a filling there potentially. And then when I went back for my 6 monthly clean and
So
scrape.
6 months was all it took.
Yeah, but I was doing the oil pulling probably 15 minutes every day consistently.
Wow. When would you do it? Because that's obviously a long time.
Evening time.
Evening time?
After dinner.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. So
Oil pulling, okay.
back to Dr. David Sinclair. 7 to 8 a.m. Morning metabolism boost. So hot water with lemon. Matcha green tea, which I know you love your green tea.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that green tea is amazing for, it's cancer protective, and it is amazing for anti-aging as well.
That's right. Great for longevity.
With the EGCGs. He's fasting at this time, so he hasn't technically broken his fast yet with any of this.
Okay.
And he does a 16 and 8 fast.
Right.
So he starts eating at 11 o'clock.
Right. Finishes at 7. Okay.
In the morning, however, he does take his supplements. Oh, and I had a quote here about his fasting, which I thought was interesting. He said it's not just about the period of eating, it's the period of not eating that's so important to boost the body's defenses against aging to maximize longevity.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So it's the fasting time that's counting. Right.
Yeah.
And that makes sense.
You know, you kind of get the like gurgling, rumbling in your tummy.
Got it right now.
And yeah, me too. And I've heard people say that that's actually like your body doing calisthenics and kind of like clearing out. And yeah. Have you heard that?
No, I haven't. But
Yeah.
I mean, I would assume it's getting the gastric juices going, getting ready to prepare for your next meal, or telling you, come on.
Yeah.
Let's get something in there.
I sort of got the impression that it was more like detoxifying and like cleaning things out, and that, you know, if you're hearing that rumbling and gurgling, it's like, oh, that's actually kind of a good thing.
Okay. Yeah. So even though you might think, hey, it's time to eat, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Okay.
Must be time to eat. So the supplement stack that he has.
Right.
So this must be when he's breaking his fast, because he's having it with yogurt and olive oil.
Okay. So he's having it with olive oil. Very good. NMN,
Yep.
1,000 milligrams.
I don't have the doses.
Okay.
But do you want to just guess the ingredients?
Resveratrol.
Yes.
I wouldn't know if he would time his metformin for then
He takes that in the evening.
in the evening. Okay.
And I'll tell you why, because it goes into that as well.
Interesting. His aspirin.
Yep. Low dose aspirin.
Right. Okay. And is there much more?
There's 3 more. I'll list them off. So he's taking quercetin,
Okay.
fisetin, which I don't know what that is.
It's another anti-aging compound.
Similar to anything we know?
They all have slightly different mechanisms, but
Okay.
yeah, it's working with the sirtuin enzymes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to get you to send me something about that one. I've not
Yeah.
heard too much. And so what did I say? Quercetin, fisetin, and spermidine.
Yeah, right. Okay, he's taking some everything too.
Yeah,
Great.
so I thought that was really cool. And then he's got like a 10 to 12 hour workday. And he uses a standing desk with a stepper. And he really says that he tries not to sit down during the day.
Right.
And then he talks or mentions here a little bit about his daily sort of exercise workout schedule. We mentioned in a previous episode that he does 100 daily push-ups. He walks twice weekly, so not
that much.
Yeah, not that much.
Okay.
20-minute targeted treadmill sessions. I'm not sure how often he's doing that, but basically his baseline is that he has to do 30 minutes of moderate daily movement.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And then what he's snacking on? He's snacking on dark chocolate, Brazil nuts.
Getting his selenium in. Great.
Yep. Good for brain health, right?
Yeah. A lot of things actually.
Mm-hmm. And then he actually, after he does his gym sessions, he does cold baths or cold showers.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a few things there. So, you know, a lot of people that are training hard and heavy every single day, obviously that is healthy with adaptation, but he's not doing that. So again, I think it's more along the thought process of burning the candle too bright.
Yeah.
And so he still does the exercise required and proven for longevity, but he's not training too hard because that will require too much cell recycling and can possibly shorten DNA with the replication and the multiplication of cells. So he's sort of finding that balance there.
Just 30 minutes moderate daily exercise, which I think is interesting because we've seen how impactful exercise is, and it's almost like less can be more. Like when you look at the Loma Lindens doing their 10 minutes of HIIT 3 times a week, and they were getting crazy results.
Yeah. Well, they're one of the longest living people in the world.
Which, I mean, this is great for lazy people like me. It's like, the bar isn't set too high.
That's right. So it's not unattainable, but he's still moving and getting on the treadmill and getting 30 minutes a day, so it's important to do that.
The thing that I really liked is that he's actually he doesn't have a sedentary lifestyle, even though he's working 10 to 12 hours a day. He's standing for most of that.
Could be sitting down, looking at a computer, but he's standing up and he's not sort of sitting down and being sedentary.
I was really interested by that.
Yeah.
I'll just flick through. So his nutrition is low calorie, nutrient dense, plant-based.
He's plant-based as well.
Yeah.
So
the two big hitters,
Brian Johnson,
both plant-based.
And Dr. Sinclair.
Yeah, because you always hear, minimize red meat, a little bit of seafood, omega-3s, da-da-da, which is good, but these guys are, plant-based.
Interesting.
I wonder why.
It's the clinical data. So these guys only do things with clinical data, and it's showing that meat eating areas, especially excessive meat, live less long. So less lifespan.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. I feel like I had something interesting about that, but if it comes back, I'll let you know. The one thing he did say about his nutrition was the longer your food lasts on the shelf, the shorter you last.
Get it fresh.
Yeah, fresh produce.
Fresh and organic. That's what we want.
His dietary non-negotiables, minimal portions, plant and nut-based nutrition, complete dairy elimination, rare exceptions for celebrations only, occasional red wine inclusion.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, even Ben Greenfield makes sure that he has one standard drink every day, and he's a body hacker as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And he just said, in just a matter of months, I was able to further reduce my biological age by eating better.
Right.
And
so
then,
it's never too late, guys.
Yeah, that's it. Just get into the right nutrition. And so his now we're into his evening supplements. And you mentioned earlier metformin. So he's taking his metformin in the evening. So I don't know if you want to explain anything about that.
A bit too much mechanisms, but it's a diabetic drug. So for blood sugar levels, and there's a few other things for longevity, but we could possibly save that for another episode.
Well, I've got a very short overview of it here.
Go for it.
So initially developed for diabetes, as you mentioned. The prescription serves a different purpose, targeting aging at the cellular level through mTOR inhibition and glucose regulation.
Do we want to? Okay, we can talk about it.
You don't have to.
Well, mTOR is the cascade for muscle recovery. So mTOR is a great thing if you're looking to put on muscle or get muscle recovery, but because it creates division and the growth of cells in a good way for recovery, it can speed up aging.
Okay.
So AMPK is the opposite. You've got fat loss and loss of cells with autophagy. AMPK will prolong life, whereas mTOR burns the candle brighter, like we said before. And then, of course, glucose regulation. So if we can make sure that we're not getting spikes in glucose, which will create an insulin response, which will then scrub our artery walls.
Increase inflammation,
create atherosclerotic arteries, etc. But again, it goes real deep. But really two very important ways to prolong life is to minimize mTOR, not good if you're a bodybuilder.
Sure.
And also regulate glucose to stop the inflammation and the scrubbing of cells.
Yeah, so just don't eat sugar.
Well,
really.
That
Try
definitely
not to
will
eat
help.
sugar, processed sugar.
Again, if it lasts long on the shelf,
you last less. Yeah,
so
that's
definitely
such a
get
funny
rid of
way
sugar.
to look at it.
Get rid of vegetable oils, guys. Really important.
Yeah. He did say in reference to the metformin, studies have shown that type 2 diabetics who take metformin, typically at 2 grams a day, he only takes 1 gram a day because obviously he's not diabetic, actually have fewer diseases and live longer than people who don't have type 2 diabetes.
And don't take the drug. So, yeah, it's a good longevity drug. It does have a few negatives. Again, we won't go into that. But obviously, if Dr. David Sinclair is using it, the positives are outweighing the negatives from a longevity point of view.
And the final thing they say about it is that the evening timing of his dose may improve the drug's bioavailability and mimic the benefits of fasting, which I thought was
interesting.
I suppose with the glucose regulation and
exactly.
Yeah. And then we get to bedtime. So I think we were saying with his fasting, he has an eating window from around 11 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And then he doesn't get a lot of sleep. It says that he only aims for 6 to 7 hours of high quality sleep.
Interesting.
Yeah. And he uses an Oura ring. And he actually uses a special bed for precise temperature regulation called an 8-sleep bed.
Right. I think it's very vague, but I've heard of this.
I haven't heard of it.
Yeah, it will increase heat when it needs to and decrease heat when it needs to, and sort of get that homeostasis that you want in your bedtime when you're sleeping. Because if you get too hot, you'll wake up. If you get too cold, especially in the body, it's not a good thing.
Yeah.
Getting your head warm in a warm shower before bed and then letting that cool down is very good for the hormones and helping you sleep. But the body getting cold is not necessarily a good thing in the middle of the night. So, it basically regulates that temperature to a healthy, happy sort of homeostasis temperature to help with sleep.
Modern technology.
Yeah.
That's amazing. We're so spoiled, aren't we?
We are. And there were so many things that you mentioned there which I wanted to delve into, but I know we're stuck for time. So I've had to hold back a little bit. But,
do you want to pick one?
No, because we've got a really cool segment coming up about supplements.
Do you want to dive straight into it? You can.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about, without getting, again, too deep, because we could go for hours.
I have no idea what you're going to say.
We are going to talk about semiglutide.
What is a semiglutide?
So semiglutide, otherwise known as a pharmaceutical drug of Ozempic.
Oh, okay.
Right. So it's the biggest sort of in-fad vogue drug at the moment.
Such a buzzword at the moment.
You've also got other versions of it now because Ozempic lost the exclusivity because they couldn't provide enough to the worldwide market, especially in America.
And this was a diabetic drug as well.
It was.
Is it anything to do with metformin?
Not really,
okay.
No. So it's doing other things which we'll get to. But the other brands that you might have heard of is Mounjaro, Wegovy, etc. Mm-hmm. They're all based around semiglutide. And this drug actually works on the GPL1 agonist receptors in the brain and increases satiety. So people aren't hungry.
So, yeah, it's appetite suppressing.
It's appetite suppressing.
Is that all it does?
There's other mechanisms. Again, we won't go too deep.
Because the results are crazy.
Because it also helps with blood sugar levels, and it was originally a drug for diabetics. And it really helped with weight loss. And that was because of the appetite suppression.
Yeah. So people are just not eating.
People just aren't eating. And we've had experts that say, let's test it out. And they use it and they come back and they say, yep, it absolutely works because you cannot help but get into a caloric deficit.
So then is it good for longevity because you're not eating and calorie restrictions good for longevity?
There's a few mechanisms on why it could be good for longevity. So if given to someone who's overweight, that excess fat will hold a lot of toxins and also put a lot of stress on the body. It's relatively unhealthy. We know this.
Yeah.
So if it's able to reduce weight / body fat, then it's going to help with longevity. They're going to live longer just because of that.
Will genuinely probably improve their quality of life as well because being big is hard.
It's hard, yeah. It's hard to, it makes you less mobile, puts more stress on your joints. It puts more stress on your cardiovascular system. Your heart has to work harder, etc.
Yeah.
As I mentioned also, it also holds toxins, promotes toxic estrogens. It's almost its own organ
and your mood
to produce.
Is not right.
Yeah, and it produces negative ingredients in the body. So being overweight, we know is not good for longevity, and so this can help reduce that.
Sure.
It also works through different mechanisms of stabilizing blood sugar levels, which is good for diabetics at the same time. So what the issues are, though, that we're starting to see is that the study released by Ozempic in June 2024 was shown that 2/3 of all weight loss from semiglutide products is muscle. That is not a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a very, very bad thing.
Yeah.
I probably should add more varies into that. It's a very bad thing.
Yeah, you need healthy, lean tissue for bone density and the good hormones on the other side of that.
When we contract our muscle, it releases a lot of good ingredients into our body, which can help with longevity. It's sort of its own, it's not an organ, but it's its own organ for production of healthy ingredients and byproducts in the body, especially with contracting. And if we lose that muscle mass, the problem is when we go off the semiglutide, we now have less muscle, which means that we've got a lower metabolic rate, which means by stopping those semiglutide products or Ozempic, I'll just repeat that because it might be a bit unclear because we're swapping names. Semiglutide is the ingredient and Ozempic, Mounjaro, Wegovy are the brands.
Yeah.
So when I say Ozempic and semiglutide, they're the same thing. When they stop this semiglutide product, because their metabolic rate is lower, because they've lost all this muscle mass, their body fat skyrockets because their metabolic rate has slowed down. So let's just say they had 30 kilos of muscle and 30 kilos of fat. They started taking the Ozempic. They're down to 25 kilos of muscle and maybe 27.5 kilos of fat. So they've lost a lot more muscle than fat. Now when they're not on the semiglutide, their resting metabolic rate is now lower. They were burning 1,600 calories per day. Now they're burning 1,400 calories per day. They can't eat as much without putting on body fat now because it's easier for them to go into a surplus.
So if they go back to their original eating habits.
That's right.
Is it also true that there's an element of, in terms of like that bounce back effect, there's an element of like cell memory? So like the fat cells have the memory of being bigger, or does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Question?
To a degree, yes. But what to break the science down with that, it's that the cell, particularly in white subcutaneous adipose fat, which is the cold, low blood supply fat that everyone wants to get rid of. So on a guy, it's on the tummy, and on the female, it's on the tummy and thighs. The memory really means that the cell never disappears.
Right.
So it was large. We went on a calorie deficit, it shrank in size. So it appears that we've lost fat in those areas. But if I'm just going to make a fake number, but if we had 1 million fat cells there previously, we've still got 1 million there. It's just that they're smaller. I like to use the analogy buckets of water. So that bucket, which is a fat cell, was full and now it's pretty empty, but that bucket is still there.
Right.
Which means as soon as we get into that calorie surplus again, which will be easier now because we've got less muscle to support metabolism. When we stop using that semiglutide, we eat more, we go into this calorie surplus, those buckets of water will fill up and they will fill up fast. And so people will bounce back.
So it's not so much cell memory, it's just that there's fat cells there that can be refilled. And they never disappear,
they just get refilled again.
Unless you introduce other ingredients like conjugated linoleic acid. Okay, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, so it's really important for anyone looking to go on a semiglutide product or using one currently, or even if you've got a family member using it, they need to be on an amino acid called carnitine. So carnitine is made naturally by the body when methionine and lysine amino acids join together, but we don't make enough. So when on Ozempic, we'll lose a little bit of body fat at the start, and then the body switches to a process called gluconeogenesis, which is the breakdown of muscle. It's a lot easier to do that. If we don't have carnitine in the blood, we cannot use free-form fatty acids in our blood as energy. That is where fat needs to be used. It needs to be in our blood. It can't be stuck hard on the body. It needs to be floating around our blood to use as energy. That stops if carnitine stops. The body will then start releasing enzymes to break down muscle tissue to amino acids, which will go through gluconeogenesis, which is the liver will then convert those amino acids to glucose. And we're fueling this calorie deficit that's been created by Ozempic because we're not eating with our muscle tissue. That's not what people want. But a lot of people out there are uneducated. They want weight loss.
Yeah, not fat loss.
Not fat loss. We don't want weight loss. We don't want to lose muscle. It doesn't matter if you've gone down from 80 kilos to 70 kilos. If it's all muscle mass, that's not a good thing. You should have stayed at 80 kilos. So we want that to be fat loss. So really important to add carnitine into their system orally. Now people will say, oh, you'll get carnitine in small amounts naturally from beef. But if we're eating food with carnitine in it, we're defeating the purpose of trying to get into a calorie deficit.
But also if you're taking a semiglutide, you're probably not
going to want to eat that.
So
exactly. So you need to do it in supplement form. Okay. So when it comes in food form, we do absorb 85%. When it comes in supplement form, we only absorb 15%, but we just do a big dose. We do 1,000 milligrams. We'll get 150 milligrams of carnitine in the blood, which is plenty, which is a lot.
Okay.
You know, if you eat a big steak, you'll get 150 milligrams, but then you've got all the proteins and the fats and the calories that went with it, and it's not going to create a fat loss environment anyway.
But also in addition to that, you're probably eating other things, which is creating glucose that your body can use for energy, so it's not wanting to use fat anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like when you're eating your beef, you're probably eating potatoes.
So if you're in a calorie deficit, you're better off taking it as a supplement.
Take it as a supplement. Yeah. You will get some absorption without getting too complicated. If you can get some gamma butyrobetane or GBB with that carnitine, that will massively up to 300% increase carnitine blood serum levels, which is where you need carnitine to actually take fat from the blood and move it into the cell to use as energy. So I know we've got a bit scientific. I hope that's made sense.
Yeah.
But when taking semiglutide to reduce your appetite, to get you in a huge caloric deficit so the body needs to go to tissue for energy and not food, we need to introduce carnitine to make sure we turn off the breakdown of muscle and start using fat as fuel. It's super important. Don't go on semiglutide products like Ozempic without carnitine.
And then did you want to quickly mention my favorite weight loss ingredient? Or
you mentioned conjugated linoleic acid, which is an incredible ingredient. Clinical data has shown it is very unique. It creates an enzyme called P53. The body cannot produce this enzyme by itself. So we used to get CLA in our diet from eating nose to tail, and it's high in esophageal tissue in animals, which no one eats. So I don't know the last time you ate an esophagus, but I haven't for a long time. So CLA we now get naturally from the safflower plant. It goes through a process of esterification and it conjugates linoleic or fatty acids in a chain. Basically, the body sees this ingredient and this ingredient creates the release of enzyme P53 in the human body. Now, enzymes break things up into smaller particles and pieces so we can use them in our body for fuel and other things. And the only lock and key this P53 can hit is the adipocyte, which is a fat cell that deposits on the stubborn areas, white subcutaneous adipose fat areas on the tummy for guys and tummy and thighs for girls. And it actually breaks down the adipocyte wall and it destroys the cell. So we were talking about buckets in this area just never disappearing. It is the hammer. It destroys the bucket. So it destroys this adipose tissue on the tummy and thighs, which is where everybody wants to lose it.
So this is more so for like making sure you don't have that bounce back effect.
Exactly. And if we can reduce the amount of adipocytes in our body, then when we stop the semiglutide, we have less buckets to fill up. But we can't do it with carnitine alone, which we already know we need, because if we don't use carnitine, we're not metabolizing fat. So we add the carnitine in, and on the same day to protect the muscle and then target fat as fuel. And on the same day, we introduce conjugated linoleic acid or CLA, and it's going to make sure the fat that we're burning is coming from the tummy and thighs, and it's destroying the cell permanently. So there's no bounce back, there's less bounce back because the cells have reduced in number and it's permanent. So people say, oh, so when I stop these carnitine and CLA, I'll bounce back. No, the opposite. You will bounce back less because there's less cells. It's not complicated. Although maybe I make it sound complicated. But yeah, ideally what you want is take Ozempic with carnitine and CLA. It's going to target stubborn fat as fuel and it's going to keep it off and it's going to stop all the muscle loss that occurs or a lot of the muscle loss that occurs with semiglutide so people won't get future problems.
I had one more question about the semiglutides, because there's some pretty scary risk factors, as well.
Which we've just come back from America and on all the ads, they're advertising so many drugs over there. Semiglutide was every second ad and it said, don't take if you've got thyroid cancer. If you take this product and notice a lump in your thyroid, stop using immediately.
Visit your GP.
Clinically proven to increase
risk of thyroid
cancer. And if you've got some thyroid cancer, make it worse.
So, that's obviously the risk factors.
Well, there's more, but yeah.
I don't think we need to mention them. I can share articles going over the risk factors, but I understand that this is essential for some people. It's really helping some people. And you can't deny that.
It is. That's correct. So people that are overweight because they overeat, and let's not sugarcoat it, that is a big problem. If you're eating too much, you will put on tissue and it will likely be fat.
Yeah.
This will help that.
But so then my question is, we know the risk factors. If somebody wanted to use a product like that, how would you go about minimizing those risk factors? Like, obviously you can say like, take a natural alternative, like try with a natural alternative. We've just spoken about adding carnitine and CLA to make it more effective and less bounce back. But would you say that, only go on a prescription for 3 months and really dedicate yourself to it and then stop there? Like, don't use it long term. Like, how do you minimize it? Is there anything you can do after the fact to undo any damage that's been done? Like, I just don't.
There can be some long-term effects. It can cause paralysis of the bowel.
So lifelong diarrhea.
In
short.
Again, it's not causing that with everyone. But these are just some of the risks that people need to be aware of. You would start on your dose and then you would use it for a set amount of time and then aim to stop. This is not a drug that you stay on for the rest of your life.
Yep.
You lose the fat and then you get off it, and then ideally you'd wean off it. So you would take your dose and then you would start reducing the dose with time as you started getting closer to your goal. And as you said, to stop the negative effects of muscle wastage, make sure you take it with carnitine and CLA. Make sure you're extremely well hydrated, because when you start burning fat as energy, the body will release a lot of toxins from that fat. And if we don't flush that out with water, so we pee it out, it'll redeposit in the fat that remains and switch off fat loss in those areas. So really important to drink a lot of water when you're on semaglutide.
I also just think for your organ health as well, like to keep everything moving.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's just, as we know, it's the number one most effective thing for health is water consumption. And females, 2.5 to 3 litres a day, males up to 4 litres a day. We don't want too much because we'll wash out our minerals otherwise.
Yeah.
But if we're hitting around those levels, that's enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I guess the only other thing that you would say is if people do make the decision to take a semaglutide is to just be aware of the risk factors and monitor your health closely.
That's right. But also enjoy the weight loss, but do it properly.
Have those things in place.
Excellent.
Thanks for sharing. That was so interesting.
I think it's an in vogue thing at the moment, so I love to talk about and educate it because not a lot of people understand it.
Yeah, you've got a lot of knowledge to share around it, and I think, you can see how passionate you are about getting it out there. I love it.
We can do it, but we'll do it right.
Yeah. So a bit of a long episode. So we'll try to keep the final segment of the episode brief.
We'll keep it tight.
Yeah. I wanted to share a story about the oldest ballerina in the world.
Unreal.
Her name's Eileen. Do you want to
That is an ironic name for a ballerina, isn't it?
Is it?
Leaning straight. Okay. Maybe it's just in my head. All right.
I don't know. You might have missed me with that one. Do you want to have a guess how old she was?
So she has passed away.
Very recently, middle of November 2024.
Oh, wow. So only less than a month ago.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm guessing she was 93?
110.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm way off this one.
Yeah. Super centurion.
Was she the oldest?
Yeah. Oldest ballerina.
Is she based in Australia?
She's Australian, yeah.
Was she one of the oldest people in Australia?
I'm actually not too sure, potentially.
Wow.
But she studied singing and music in Sydney in the 1930s.
Wow. Before the Second World War. Wow.
Yeah, and so she ended up moving overseas. So she moved to France and the United States for 60 years. And she came back to Australia in 2013.
When she was 99.
Yeah, so
there you go. Big move.
She came back to Australia and she really said that she missed the kookaburras.
Right.
And she missed the smell of gum trees.
Oh, well, plenty of them in Australia.
Which I just thought was so beautiful. She won a lot of awards. She was voted as one of the 100 Women of Influence by the Australian Financial Review. And there's a really beautiful video of her in 2022 at the age of 108. She made a music video. So she was dancing for a clarinetist. And
can you pop that on the blog?
Yeah,
so
I will.
Can see this video?
I will share that. It's just it's super beautiful. So yeah, 108 when she did that video.
Amazing.
Yeah, she's just won so many awards, and she submitted in 2019. She entered a self-portrait for the Archibald Prize, becoming the award's oldest ever contributor. So at 2019, you can do the math on that. She was 105.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so 105 years old, she was, doing self-portraits and still dancing at 108. She passed away at the age of 110.
Amazing. Just that zest for life. She's still moving at 99, putting in Pulitzer Prize entries at 105.
Yeah, that's
incredible.
It. And she made it to her 110th birthday by a week.
Unreal.
And then
that was
sadly
enough.
passed. That was it.
Okay.
And you know me, I have a quote.
Yeah, I was going to say, what about the quote?
Oh, this one wrecked me. When I'll try to hold it together.
Lucky it's the end of the episode.
I just thought it was just such a beautiful way to put it. Okay. I've really built it up now, so you'll probably be disappointed.
Fire away.
But she said, "I'm not old. I've just been here a long time and learned a few things along the way."
I can even hear the waver in your voice. That's amazing.
But yeah, I like that.
Legend.
I'm not old. I've just been here a long time.
Yeah.
Isn't that such a beautiful way to look at life?
I was going to say, what an amazing way amazing viewpoint.
Yeah, and just danced her way through life all the way to 110.
Quite literally. Amazing. Thanks, Fee.
Oh, pleasure. So thanks so much for listening to the HAC podcast.
Thanks, team.
That was the wrap up on our penultimate episode of the season. So join us next week for a special season finale. We'll revisit some of our favourite moments, and I think we'll make up or talk about what our ideal longevity blueprint would look like after learning everything that we've learnt. Be sure to check out the HAC online and follow us on Instagram at the @HAC_pod and let us know what you thought of the episode.
We'll see you for the last one soon.
Yeah, coming right
this
up.
season.